Hello and welcome again. So in this video, we're going to explore the difference between relative reality, dualistic mind and reality, and then polarities. And we're going to go explore a very simple polarity practice so that you can understand what are polarities and how can you really see this in your life and start to work with these polarities more actively. I'm also going to give you a list of examples of very common polarities that people tend to operate in and tend to preference one side over the other, so to speak. So let's get into it. Okay. So really, it's important before we start exploring any polarities, it's really important to really understand what is the difference between relative reality, the dualistic mind, and polarity. Now, I spoke a little bit about this in the last video already, but I want to emphasize it again to make it super clear as to what that is. So relative reality, very simply put, is the world of form and appearance. So think of anything you can see, touch, smell, sense. Yeah, or taste. Yeah, so anything that you can experience of the world of form and appearance through your senses. Very simply put, that's relative reality. Without necessarily labeling anything, without necessarily understanding what we're seeing or experiencing or tasting or touching, relative reality is at its purest form, the world of form and appearance. Now, in a lot of meditative practices and more Eastern meditation system, it's actually the goal, quote unquote, to get to this way of viewing reality and living in this way with the world and in the world and as the world, which is that we remove the dualistic mind and the dualistic parts in the mind, and then definitely also remove or see through would be a better way to put it, see through a polarity or tensions at play. So relative reality doesn't contain dualism. It does contain form and appearance, and there's a difference in that. Then we go into dualistic mind. So dualistic way of viewing is the state / belief / seeing of having two or more parts or aspects. In other words, we are splitting reality into parts. So we're no longer seeing the whole that's there or experiencing the whole that's there or here, if you will. We're splitting it into parts. Again, like I said, we're not in touch with the tree anymore as simple as a tree, but we're now in touch with either left side of the tree or the right side of the tree. Or this particular perspective or that particular perspective. So you can really see this or that, good, bad, wrong, right, subject, object, masculine, feminine, either or, being, doing, etc., etc. We will go into more examples of the dualistic mind and how it splits reality apart into these oppositions, into these aspects. Now, in a sense, dualisms don't have to be polarities. When we integrate these different energies and we really start to see these two parts as a part of the larger whole, we simply can reference a masculine energy and a feminine energy, but we're not particularly the energies are not in conflict with one another. We only speak of a polarity if there's a tension, a friction, or a conflict between these two aspects or as parts of reality that are seen in opposition. And the only reason why there's a polarity that we experience is because there's an investment of self in a particular part or of the whole. So we preference and are invested in, for example, the more masculine side of ourselves as opposed to the feminine side of ourselves, or the other way around. Yeah, so we really have these three layers, and it's flexibility and leadership is being able to move and shift through these three layers of reality and really start to recognize and see how is our mind constantly creating parts of the world, parts of the whole picture. You can kind of see the world is a painting and a whole painting, and we're focusing on certain things and leaving certain other things out, which means we're not actually experiencing the world fully as we can. And there's a function to that. There's an actual function to that. But ideally, we would like to, particularly as conscious leaders, we would like to see more of the world so that we can see more of our businesses, see more opportunities that are available to us, see more possibilities, and see more potential. If we can see more potential, we can also actualize more potential within ourselves. It's that simple. How does our mind work, and how is it able to flex and flow between different aspects and between different parts of reality, and start to really see that everything is a whole and also a part? And particularly polarity is, of course, interesting when we really notice we are stuck in a particular way of being and or a particular way of operating. For example, if you feel more like you're operating from your masculine energy and maybe a little bit of an unhealthy masculine, which is more of a non-stop doing, controlling, forward driven, and not being able to stop and actually relax, because there might be guilt arising that you could be doing something. Yeah, or more of the feminine side, and which is flowy and creative, but also maybe passive. And how can we really balance these energies out in a way that really serve you, so that you can live a more holistic, grounded, and balanced life, harmonious life, if you will. And a part of conscious leadership is not we're not just going towards goals and working towards the outcome. It's okay to have a goal and an outcome. It is really also, how are we going about that? How are we really in the world? And how are we organizing our teams and organizations in a way that's genuinely holistic and integrative for all parties involved, where we are aware and then also inclusive? So let's go into a very simple polarity integration practice. So you can close your eyes for this one, or you can keep them slightly open. And you can start to notice your breath. So simply start to observe, how is the breath breathing? As the air is flowing in and out. And really start to become more aware now of, how is the breath flowing in? And at what point does the breath naturally decide to fall out? And a real simple inquiry question that can emerge here is, where does the inhale stop and where does it begin? And you'll quite naturally find, as you observe, that there is no real beginning or end to this. And it's actually quite hard to differentiate the inhale from the exhale when you really start to notice this. And so you can start to see the interdependence. I can only speak of an inhale if I have a concept and an experience of an exhale, of a breathing out. I can only speak of a breathing in if I can speak of a breathing out. And I can only speak of a breathing out if I have some experience of a breathing in and a concept of that. If we remove the breathing in and the breathing out, we're simply breathing. And it's one continuous fluid stream of breath moving. If we particularly don't preference the inhale over the exhale. We're simply breathing. And so you really can start to see how breathing in and breathing out actually doesn't actually exist. It only exists if I take a reference point of one of the other sides. And so you can start to see and experience the interdependence of both breathing in and breathing out. What you might naturally start to notice is that instead of paying attention to your breath, so a tension with your breath, so you're being in attention to your breath, attention to your breath, you start to rest back into your awareness field. You start to lean back into the field of awareness that is both aware of the breathing in and breathing out, and of potentially the concept, or let's say the experience of that, and can also really stand back and observe how there's really no such thing as breathing in and breathing out, and it's simply all happening as a happening. And as a conscious leader, what is important is that you can lead from this place of awareness, because this is where you have overview. This is where you stand back far enough to see what's going on. And because you stand back far enough, you stand in your field of awareness, you can also step back into the duality or the polarity if you want to. But if you preference breathing in over breathing out, you quite quickly have a system that's out of balance. And in a moment, we will refer this to other polarities so that it starts to make sense as to why that is relevant. Why is it relevant to really start not necessarily preferencing one over the other? So I'll share some common polarities that we have found that are quite common in people. That we can experience tensions between. So we can reference or preference in one side over the other. So that could be care for self or care for others. Particularly if you work in a team or in an organization and you work with multiple people, when do you have me time or alone time, or you're operating in a family system of some sort? When do you have me time and alone time? And when are you with others? And is there a tension between the two? Or is it possible to integrate a reciprocity that the moment you care for others, you're also simultaneously caring for yourself, and the moment you care for yourself, you're simultaneously caring for others? And can you really start to see the interdependence? Some other common polarities are attachment and aversion, confidence and humility. Because if we really look at confidence and humility, people that are genuinely confident, so not with some sort of pretense, with some mask that is placed upon themselves, they're genuinely confident, they're simultaneously humble. You can't have true confidence without true humility. And the other way around as well, you can't have true humility if there's not genuine confidence. But for whatever reason, in some people's minds, it can be that confidence and humility are in opposition of one another. They can't coexist. They're separate in some way. The same goes for judging and perceiving, win or lose. Love and fear could be a polarity. Life or birth and death. Action, doing, contemplation and being. this is similar action doing could be referred to as masculine or feminine. As masculine, and then contemplation and being is more feminine. And we've got being diplomatic or nice, or being truthful and authentic. And there's the polarity between self and other. I can only reference myself if I have a reference point and perspective of another. And the same with inner and outer. I can only reference an inner, an inside of me, if I have a reference point of something that's outside of me. And if you really start to explore that, you kind of start to see how your whole world that you've constructed for yourself kind of starts to collapse and yet simultaneously fall into place. And the amount of possibility and potential that's available here is just incredible. Towards motivated and away motivated is a very interesting one, particularly in business and particularly in kind of like the motivation space or the leadership space in particular. So we'll definitely be exploring that one. It's another way of putting it. Towards motivated is kind of being motivated by the carrot. So there's some reward or some outcome or some desire that you're working towards, the carrot. Yeah, something that seems likable or something you want to have. So you work towards that. And people that are more orientated away motivated are more moving away from pain or some discomfort, which is the stick of being poor or being not successful or being not good enough, whatever it might be, not have enough money, haven't reached enough goals, XYZ. So people tend to operate between this towards motivated and away motivated polarity. Whilst true motivation is beyond both of those. We're simply in alignment and in intrinsic motivation with ourselves, and we're not in this polarity of towards and away. So this is one that we will be exploring. It's a very, very interesting one, a very useful one, when you really start to see and integrate this into particularly your business life and so on. And as you work with other people in the team, this is very valuable. And then there could be a polarity experience between harmony and agreement, and then challenge and seeking difference. Another way of putting this is matching, which is harmony, agreement, so matching reality, or mismatching reality, so challenging reality. And when we're stuck on one side or the other, so we're constantly in challenging, we're constantly seeking difference. We're not able to sometimes simply agree. But if we're only agree, we can't actually see how things could be different. So we can't really be creative or see new opportunities or new challenges. Yeah, so really, again, in leadership and any form of business, it's really important to integrate both agreement and disagreement, or seeing difference. And then again, masculine and feminine. So these are some common polarities that you can play with and start to work with. And we will, in the next video, we'll go through attachment and aversion as a very important polarity at play. And you can start to use that as an example, and you can start to play with any polarity in your life. So anything that you might notice that you have a strong value with or an opposition with, and also reach out to us in the chat or ask the community how they are experiencing it, and ask us for help or support if you're experiencing a certain tension, and we can jump on the call or support you in a specific polarity that you might have noticed or observed, but you don't know exactly what's going on. For example, we're here to support that. So have a play, have fun, and I'll see you in the next video.